Welcome to Talkin Tires, the podcast that delves deep into the world of tires. Join us as we explore everything from the science behind the manufacturing to the latest innovations in tire recycling. Our aim is to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of tires, including how they work, how to maintain them, and how to dispose of them responsibly. Whether you're a seasoned mechanic, curious car enthusiast, or an avid recycler, Talkin Tires is the perfect podcast for anyone who wants to learn about the essential component of the modern vehicle and heavy equipment. So buckle up and join us for an informative and engaging journey into the world of tires. All right, welcome to another episode of Talkin Tires. I'm your host, Craig Hunter, and I'm here with Don Wadleigh and Mike Getz of Century Road Solutions and the patent holder of mechanical concrete. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, so I wanted to have you guys on to talk a little bit about mechanical concrete. And obviously here on Talkin Tires, we talk about everything tires. And most people, they hear the term mechanical concrete. Actually, I heard the term before I saw it in action, and I thought it was something completely different. So I'm really excited to learn more. I'm sure our listeners will be too. So who'd like to start us off and tell us a little bit more about it?
You want to go, Mike?
Go ahead, Don.
So mechanical concrete is a aggregate confinement system that is used in road building, retention walls. There's many uses for it. It is. I'll tell you the origin of it. You know, Mike and I, and we have one other partner, John Kuntz. We've been in the tire business for quite a while, and we were trying to figure out, like so many people, what to do with end-of-life tires. And we played around with a lot of different things, and we came upon this patent for mechanical concrete. And it is basically a system to build roads. That's its primary use. And it is basically a geocell. When you cut the sidewalls off of a tire, you're left with a steel reinforced rubber cylinder that is a confinement system for aggregate. You lay that down on the ground, you shoot a nail holding it together, you fill it full of aggregate, and that cylinder keeps all that aggregate in column. And you always hate to say you'll never have a road fail, but we've never had a road fail, because when a load is put down on the top of a road, the load is transferred, and then it transfers laterally. But that tire that we all drive around on all day long, it'll absorb that load and then come back, and it will not allow the aggregate to fail laterally. Potholes, ruts, tire or road failure is caused by the underlayment migrating out to the side laterally. We all see potholes on the road, and that's because the underlayment has failed. So that was, when we saw that, we knew where we wanted to go. And so we went to West Virginia, bought the patent from the inventor of mechanical concrete. His name's Sam Bonasso. Amazing man. And
he passed away?
He has not passed away, but he has some health issues.
You told me, yeah. So I knew. I'm sorry. I knew it was something like that, though, that he could no longer be a part of it. So it felt like you were running with the torch almost.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it took us. Mike was trying to get a hold of him, and it took us months to even be able to get a hold of him. We'd call, and he'd hang up, and so we finally did, and went up there and bought the patent from him. And we've been growing the business ever since. It's not new technology. This technology has been around for 15, 18 years. And Sam built.
It's good. It feels like good, functional technology. That's what it feels like to me.
It's functional. It's simple. If you hold the aggregate in column, the aggregate will not move, and the aggregate will just do what it's intended to do, and that's absorb the load of the road. And Sam took us, when we were in West Virginia, he took us up to some roads that he had built probably 18 years ago that went up to a coal roads. And these things had 80,000 pound trucks, a couple 100,000 of them every year driving on them. And Sam was he's got Parkinson's, so we talk kind of quiet. And I'd say, Sam, is this the road you're talking about? And he'd say, yeah. And I was like, yeah. I told him, I said, if you took a power washer and you cleaned it off, it looked like it was brand new. Goes, yeah. I mean, if your underlayment doesn't fail, and it's a coal mine. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, so that's a good testimonial, right? And it'd be nice to almost set up a case study for that, and get some of that, like get those exact numbers of those trucks running up and down the road.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Well, to piggyback on that, every road that has been done or structured has no failures whatsoever. 100% still like
performing flawlessly.
I think someone has to see it because it's really impressive to see.
Yes,
surely is.
We've actually seen it go in the ground now. They're in Blackfoot, so in Idaho, so we know, it is a doable thing, and I really like I said, the functionality. You said simple. Take me back a little bit again to when you met Sam. You rode out. You say you went and you saw that road, and then you had to go home and you had to find some roads. You had to have a plan of attack. Like, can you talk a little bit about like where you went, who you talked to, and how you started to get this going? Well, I know it's still growing now, but
yes,
we actually I started talking to some friends of mine who were in the road building business. They've been building roads in this area for years. And I went to them and showed them the product, and they looked at it and said, Mike, that is fabulous. That is great. So what does Mike say? All right, when do we get started? Let's go. And they looked at, and these are two brothers. They looked at each other and kind of smiled. And I said, what's going on? And they said, Mike, that's a great product, but we're not going to use it. We're not going to buy it. I said, why? He said, you're going to put us out of business. We make our money on maintenance. All road builders have maintenance contracts. That's where we make our money. So I told him, you build bad roads on purpose. He said, we've been building them this way for 100 years. So, we're not going to stop. That's sad, but that's true.
It is sad. I was joking around with a colleague the other day in the conference room, and I said, well, that's the way we always did it, or we always do it, or something. And I was saying, and he knew I think he figured out I was joking with him because he was describing something that, we needed. And I'm like, well, that's the way we always did it. And then Susie turned, I was like, I gotcha. And everybody laughed because we hate that term. I mean, we really, and I don't use the word hate. Like if my kids listen to this podcast, they'll be like, whoa, Dad said hate. But we really don't like that. It gives you the mindset of like there's nowhere to go in life, right? Like there's no way we don't need to change the way we've always done that. And that's just mind-boggling to me that people get stuck in that. But some of these industries, 50, 100, 150 years old, they get in these ruts just like anybody else, no pun intended. But this particular one, it reminds me, somebody said I had heard that the lobbyist that backed the no-covered gravel trucks at our state capitol was hired by the windshield companies. Right? So same type of mentality. Yeah. You got to follow the money trail, right? To get to where you're to see where it's really leading and why. And in this scenario, so you hit that. That seems like a roadblock. Another pun, but that seems like a roadblock.
And it's a roadblock that it's so hard to understand and figure out when you've got some that can do the job correctly and better. And so I told him, I said, look, why don't you join me and be the first ones to do this? You've got all the business in the world. You can start doing every road because you can do it better than the other people. Well, they're just set in their ways and they wasn't going to change. So we just moved on to other people, individuals, companies, because there's private roads and the oil companies down here have roads, to all the oil wells on the ranches. And
it's kind of where my head went is, commercial or industrial kind of guys that have to pay to maintain their roads.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Right.
The people that understand the value of building something right. I mean, we really had to start with some free thinkers. And like the job we did in Blackfoot, I mean, that was a great facility. It was kind of an intermodal facility. and so they've got a lot of loads going on it. And we got some pushback on that too, because when people come out and they look at it while it's under construction, they go, "What are you doing with all these tires? And you're going to bury them?" And I said, "Well, first off, they're not tires; they're cylinders. We took an end-of-life tire and we turned it into a product, and it's a geo-confinement system. This is nothing new. Geo-confinement systems are used all over the place for light usage. We just have an industrial usage. Our 12 inches, our 9 inches of confined aggregate has the same load-bearing ability as 24 inches of unconfined aggregate. So, there's so many advantages to it. There's less equipment to build the road. It just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. But the nicest thing is that we did that project last year, and we just got an email from the contractor, and he said of all the roads that he did on the facility, our road handled something you're familiar with, the freeze and thaw cycle, better than anything else. He said there was no change to the road after it went through the freeze. And that's the thing is that when the water gets in that cylinder, it'll freeze, but the cylinder will just expand. We all know tires do that when you hit a pothole, and then when it thawed, it just contracted back, and there was no issue, no cracking, no nothing. You can build a mechanical concrete road underwater, and it'll be fine.
It's amazing. So again, all of these things keep coming to my head about just the functionality of it, because there's the other components too. The sidewalls have a value of a tire. Mm-hmm. To Idaho being the third, or it jockeys with, I think it's California, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Idaho is the top dairy producers in the nation, right? So there's silages, and even I think people are even doing alfalfa silage. I mean, there's all these new tarping style of containing and holding and storing feed for those large dairy operations that include those huge chains of sidewalls. And we have a crew, and others have a crew that are cutting those 5 days a week, just nonstop pushing out sidewalls for those. I was told that there's probably 2 million sidewalls on the ground, with another million in need over the next 10 years, which to me, that just means just keep cutting, right? Well,
that's how we actually got the supply from you when I contacted you, and you turned me on to Western Ag. And
that was before we were cutting them. So next time you call, we'll be
all right. Okay, good. But they were fabulous. I mean, and that's 100% usage of an end-of-life tire with the least amount of energy to turn that tire into a viable product. You take it, you run it through a sidewall cutter, which we all know takes about 25, 30 seconds at best. And you're left with 2 tarp weights and a mechanical concrete cylinder. It's just absolutely wonderful. And that's what really excited us originally about mechanical concrete is, if you want to be green, there are many factors on being green. One of the factors is how much energy are you expending on a product to turn it into a product. And with mechanical concrete, you basically have a box knife. You take an end-of-life tire, you take a box knife, and you're turning it into a viable product. And
they
do a lot of road that's going to last longer.
They do a lot of that too. I mean, we do have the machine that drops down and cuts from both sides. And you're right, it's about 30 seconds. But those guys, there's still guys out there going just one after another. And don't get too close. Like, I'd rather stand next to the machine than the guy that's cutting with that knife. But no, and you're absolutely right. It's a strong demand, and we fell in love with the technology. And this is, to me, hopefully a good conversation to get us started, and maybe, I don't know, help you talk to some of the other folks in the area putting in roads in Idaho, because we'd love to help expand that and get that out there, because we know it works. We've already seen it with our own eyes now. So everything is about the proof is in the pudding. I've been in a few different industries, and you can take out product, insert a different product in whatever industry. when you have something that you can show the benefits and the cost savings of doing something, then it's just about talking about it. So I'm hoping that's what this podcast is all about, is talking about technologies. Hopefully somebody will listen that just sparks something in their mind, that maybe gets them thinking one way. Maybe they'll see some of these clips and get an idea of something that they might want to work on. I think the private sector, I think of companies like INEL out in the middle of Idaho. I don't know if you ever heard of that. That's the National Laboratories. I don't have any contacts there or anything, but I'm just saying that is a massive, I think it's one of the largest sites in the world as far as nuclear goes, because it's just huge acreage in the center of Idaho desert. There's roads all over that thing that they're maintaining 24/7, because there's so many roads. They're probably fixing one, the other one's decaying on the other side of the facility. So those connections are just about having these conversations, the right listener listening at the right time. And so speaking of that, I mean, who do you think is your target audience? Like, who are you trying to reach?
Let me and let me just say something on that basis. First off, we are always, and I know that this is not a threat to you, but we are always looking for new suppliers for cylinders, because our objective, and on a sidebar, right now we're finishing up our life cycle analysis for mechanical concrete to get to be certified for carbon credits. We're working with Rice University, and we're hoping to have that done pretty soon. And so every industry is worried about their carbon footprint as of right now, as they should. And so we're doing that, but along with that is that we try to use a local supplier for cylinders. Like, for instance, we just did a job in Georgia, and Mike and I are going back the 15th of next month back to Georgia to do another stretch of it. And we've got a local supplier. The supplier is coming from about an hour and a half away, and they'll supply all the cylinders. Well, the state of Georgia, this is actually a grant that we got from the state of Georgia. This is one of the poorest counties in the state of Georgia, Meriwether County, and their roads are gravel. And they've got logging trucks and agricultural trucks and residents and school buses, and they all tear the road up. Yes, and the road that we just finished, the stretch that we just finished, we finished that, what, a month and a half ago, Mike? Something like that?
Pretty close.
Yeah, and they've already had 10 inches of rain on this road, and it's still performing flawless. So because the aggregate will not wash out, because it's all being held inside of a cylinder, and that cylinder does not allow the aggregate to move. The other thing, and I'll drop it after this, but conventional road building, you need to use an aggregate that is a crusher aggregate. It has to have rough edges where it binds together. If it's not, then it will just, imagine if you dropped a bag of marbles on your desk, they would go everywhere. But if you drop a bag of marbles inside of a coffee can, they're all going to be confined inside that coffee can. That's what mechanical concrete does. So it allows us to use locally sourced aggregate. You can build a road. Sam built a road out of sand in Arizona, and it's fine because sand will handle the load. But if you build a road out of sand and you don't confine it, it's going to go everywhere. And we all drive down the beach. Well, Texas we do. I don't know about Idaho, but
not a lot of beach driving. But we got sand dunes, so I do know what you're talking about.
There you go. But a locally supplied aggregate can be used because it's all being held within a confinement system. So it allows you to be local in all of your building materials. That's our objective.
Yeah, and just so you know, I don't ever consider it any competitive stretch or anything like that. I just know you'll call me, right, when you need cylinders.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm the guy with probably the most in the area. If there's anyone else, come and get it. Yeah, but that's I know the technology. It'll be easier when folks see it. And you talked about the stretch of road you've done most recently. What would you say is your crown jewel if somebody was going to go and look at a road, or how did that how did that start, and what was it like through the process? I know you talked about Blackfoot, the people were questioning you about burying tires and whatnot,
Mhm.
which is ironic because I could really go into the issues that they have in Eastern Idaho with tires, and they should have been like, hey, how can we do more of this? And we really got a tire problem this side state, but I won't go
Mhm.
too far into that because it really is a great usage for the tires, and it just happens to be an area that they got a lot of waste tires. But can you talk a little bit more about how that, how you started that crown jewel project, how it went, and then how it's sitting now?
The Georgia project,
Any project
any
that
of
you
them. Well,
say,
I
I
like
think
think
Don,
your
I think we
crown
ought to
jewel.
talk about Guadalupe County.
absolutely, I agree 100%.
We have one here in Texas called Guadalupe County. That was the start of the Eagleford, which is the big oil area right out of South Texas. And all the big trucks that are working the oil rigs and everything were tearing up this county road in LaSalle County, right out of Seguin, Texas. Well, the commissioner came in and wanted to do a test, and he had heard about the mechanical concrete. So he got with TxDOT, and TxDOT did 1,000 feet. We did the next 1,000 feet mechanical concrete, and then TxDOT did the next 1,000. That was right at 10 years ago. To this day, that commissioner will stand on that road and say, this is the best road in Texas. They've already had to completely redo the two TxDOT. Ours is still brand new.
Perfect.
Got this commissioner saying the best road in Texas.
So that's where my mind went immediately to, was the commercial and industrial side of roads, but also the people that are writing the checks. So the county commissioners, it's quite a bit different when you have the person that's, like you said, that's installing the roads, because he's like, hey, I get paid to maintain these too, but the guy's paying the bills, right? So the
Mhm.
private entity guys that have to do their own roads, and then the commissioner who has to manage the cash, which I think Idaho spent, I don't want to say a percentage, but we spend a huge percentage of our Idaho tax dollars goes to the roads. And
Mhm.
I could see mechanical concrete having a real good impact on that.
Yeah, just think of what they could save every year of not having to repair. It gets pretty astronomical with how much money.
So how's the cost comparison to doing it and not doing it?
The cost is probably, we've heard the number, we're about 7% cheaper road for road. But where you really make the money is the next year and the next year. You have no maintenance costs with mechanical concrete. With their roads, you do. So you start adding that up, it's the sky's the limit.
So can I pick at that number a little bit, the 7%? Like how did you?
Let me adjust that a little bit. If you want to build a road as strong as mechanical concrete road, has the same load bearing ability, you have to put 24 inches of aggregate down. And you have to do that in lifts. You have to lay 7 to 9 inches. You got to water it down. You have to compact it. And then you have to test it. And then you have to lay another layer, water it and compact it, because that's what it takes to get the compaction. But with mechanical concrete, you lay the cylinders down. Depending on the aggregates you use, you don't even have to use any compaction. Like a 57 rock will self-compact once it gets in that cylinder. And then you're done. So, I mean, if you're going apples to apples, we're about 30% cheaper.
Yeah,
but
I could see that.
And so, but we want to build as many roads as we possibly can. But when somebody comes up to us, like we had an entity that called us and for their parking lot, and they said, we'd like to get a bid. I said, what are you putting in your parking lot? It says, well, it's just cars and all that. You don't want to, don't waste your time. If you're telling me you're putting big rigs out here and
fleet of logging trucks.
Exactly. I mean, that's us. There's enough business out there in that application.
Well, that's interesting. See, so that's perfect, because if you owned a fleet of logging trucks and you just destroyed the parking lot that you bought with your building, so now you're going to put in a new parking lot, you're going to call to build it stronger. So you're going to call a guy to put it with that 24-inch deep layer, blah, 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 whatever it is to get to what you're talking about. And you're going to have X price. And then you're going to call you and you're going to get Y price. And what you're telling me is Z is there's a little change at the end. which is great because that means you're a little bit cheaper and that maintenance cost. So
and your
then
loss
the
and the maintenance of your trucks because they're getting all beat to hell because they're driving on a pothole desert, and and your loss of revenue because of time spent in the yard. I mean, there's many. It's the time value of money. When you factor all that in, then we start knocking it out of the park.
So then you
Now,
take someone else who says, well, can't you just make this cheaper version? Like we can make this cheaper version. Say, well, that's fine, but if you're going to compare us to that cheaper version, then you need to include all the maintenance that comes along with it for the next 10 or 20 years, right? So I'll bet when you add that up, again, you're even cheaper than this.
That's always the question. How has a cheaper version ever worked out for me?
Exactly. That's great. That's a good line. All right. Well, okay. So I would say that the roads guy, building guy, when he kind of gave you a little pushback, would you consider that a roadblock, or was there another big thing that kind of said, well, maybe it's time to hang the shoes up. Maybe this just isn't the, or maybe you're there right now. I don't even know how you feeling now, or have you ever had a moment like that?
You mean a day that ends in Y? We've had many days like that, but if we were selling smoke and mirrors, it would be a different story. But we absolutely 100% agree with what we're doing. I mean, mechanical concrete is such an incredible application for a problem, which is end-of-life tires in the United States. I mean, Craig, you and I both know you go through a lot of tires, but your demand is probably your supply is probably a little bit more than your demand at times. I know some of the bigger recyclers, they're having to take tires and grind them up and throw them in landfills, and that drives people like you and I and Mike and my partner and everybody crazy. It drives me absolutely bonkers. And so that's really what we're not looking to replace Craig's. You know, we want to pick up that other 20% that's being thrown into landfills, because that just drives me crazy. And we all know that there's the guys that have a small tire shop that are taking their utility knife and cutting the sidewalls off and throw them in a dumpster. That drives me crazy. So that's our real thing, is that, so we hit, to go back to your original question, we hit roadblocks all the time, but we believe it. And we are starting to get some momentum now. When we finish that road in Georgia, the guys in Georgia, you know, they send us pictures all the time and they just go, wow. You know, because we actually built that road on top of the existing road, because the mechanical concrete will confine the aggregate. We could build it. We don't have to cut it down. We don't have to cut down the road 12 inches. We can build it right on top. So this is an area that had water that there was a creek that would overflow, and it would overflow the road, and they'd have to go and fix the road. But because it's higher and because the mechanical concrete confines all the aggregate, they don't have any failures. So we are more enthusiastic every day, because we talk to people like you, and we talk to other road builders, and we talk to other creative people, and they say, wow, have you thought about doing it this way? And it's like, oh, that's great. I mean, we're working right in the state of Texas and in many other states. If you develop a bare piece of dirt, you have to do retention. You have to compensate for that amount of water that you're displacing by turning the surface into an impervious surface. Well, we just had meetings yesterday with engineers, and there's a value that we're going to be able to assign to our system, because the cylinder keeps the aggregate in column, and there's air spaces in that aggregate, and that airspace is an absorbent layer. And so now these companies that are having to, this particular company that we were meeting with yesterday, they had 34 acres of land that they were going to develop, and the city was going to make them turn 10 acres out into a retention pond. And because we can offer them a load-bearing surface that is pervious, they're going to be able to shrink their detention pond dramatically. That's win-win for everybody. So we're pretty pumped.
I can see it. Yeah, you definitely. And I wasn't implying that anything was going on. I just meant
No,
like
it's
I was trying to figure, is there a timeline that, man, you hit a brick wall, but it sounds like the passion is from the heart, which that's how we feel around
Mhm.
here too. Is it
Mhm.
really? And I think I don't even know if we were on air yet, and I was talking to you about where we hunt and fish and camp, and yeah, we weren't even recording yet. It's just, but that's kind of what drives us, and it sounds like you've got a lot of passion for that too, and for this technology. I'm really excited about, where mechanical concrete can go. And I want Tire Reclaim to be a part of it. I really do. I want to stay in touch. I want to help connect you guys with some local road builders. And we're working with Idaho Transportation Department right now on our aggregate products, which is the, tire chunks and things like
Mhm.
that. And it's a long road to hoe, no pun intended.
It
But,
very much is.
and I'd love to, share our experiences with that and see anything that I can help to get you guys moving in that direction in Idaho. I know these roads are going to benefit somebody a great deal. So,
We're a company that Mike and John and I, we've always been a win-win company. We want everybody to walk away just going, "Hey, that was bitching. Let's do it again." So,
nice.
that's our objective.
Right. Well, guys, I think that's all we got time for today. I appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Anything
Well,
you
you
needed
can
to
get a hold of us from Century Road Solutions is the name of our website, or you could Google mechanical concrete and you can find us. We are always looking for more suppliers because like I said, we're constantly having inquiries all over the United States, and we want to try to use a local person whenever we can.
And would really like to work with you because there's roads that we know that are up there. Need help. You got tires, you got sidewalks. We can do the whole kit and caboodle, and everybody
we got
be
it
happy.
all.
And
Yeah,
everybody
we got
be
it all
happy.
right in Idaho.
And
All
you
right,
hooked
we
us
can go
up.
hunt.
And we'll get you up to go hunting. I can see the whitetail and a muley back there, I think, somewhere. But I do
Yeah, there.
appreciate you guys being there. He is. All right. Thanks for being on, guys. We'll see you later.
Thanks,
Thank
Greg.
you.